Research and Teaching Committee, as the name is pretty indicative, we are focusing on research and teaching, and in teaching that is both schools and higher education. And actually a large proportion of our time is actually spent on kind of making our voices heard and promoting involvement of schools and higher education and research in radiation protection. So that often takes the form of consultation. So just recently we fed back into consultations on regulations. So I think the most recent we've been asked is from the IEA, their guidance for teaching and radiation protection. We've also fed back some feedback on the authorizations 500 that came up recently for transport issues, because that affects schools in particular. Or I just fed back our responses on the safeguards. They were looking at fees, so we fed back our views on those. That's quite a lot of things we do. But we also have investigated issues with school sources, so that's actually more hands-on, investigating why some of them were identified as failing, why they were failing, and whether there could be something done about it. Or we did organize the most recent event on lab design, and very slowly, but we are working on a lab design guide. It is going a bit slowly, but yeah, we're all volunteers, so it's people need to find the time. And also we do actually engage a lot, where we have a lot of people who volunteer for the outreach events, so we're quite active in that respect as well. I guess that kind of pretty much summarizes a lot of what we do. I think it's a really nice committee, and I do get a lot out of the discussion with the other members, and I think it really helps you see a wider view of kind of issues around radiation protection, and then often you'll find actually you're not the only one, but people have the similar issues everywhere, so that's kind of helpful knowing that. But also often they'll have had that experience already, so you can ask them for advice and you can have some discussion around it. And I do feel also it makes, obviously, our voice stronger when we respond to these consultations and that, because we are representing a wider kind of audience or affected group or sector or whatever you want to call it. Okay, one challenge we do have is that sometimes I'm not 100% sure how to actually gain even more input from an even wider audience in this particular sector. So I often, when we have these consultations, I feel maybe an even wider view than our community, like our committee, is needed. I basically go around poking people and emailing them and say, do you know someone who does this? We need some input type thing. That can be a little bit tricky sometimes. I think actually I've got actually friends out of being on the committee, and but also it's so invaluable. Some of the people on the committee, they know so much, and to learn from their experience is it's really great. And I think it's a nice community, and they're willing to share their knowledge with you. I mean, and to be honest, just the social side, when you do actually have the events, it's just really nice.
I'm Gregor Steele, and I'm the RPA for Scottish Schools. Now, that's quite a small niche part of the broad church that is radiological protection. So it's fantastic that there's a committee that deals with schools and research and further and higher education. And it's certainly been a huge asset to me professionally to have engaged with and to have sat in that committee. Being in that committee, I have access to the experience of people in different roles to my own, where there's a considerable overlap, and people who have had a much longer experience of radiological protection than I have. Being in the committee means that as a group, we make sure that we don't miss some of the issues that affect our sector, and that can be quite a big deal. When a new piece of legislation comes out, schools and universities, etc., sometimes seem to be forgotten about, and the laws that are proposed can really adversely affect us, disproportionately affect us, and the committee has been able to challenge that and have legislation amended.